Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. I'd like to offer some prayers to my spiritual master. Agyanantabrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who with the torchlight of knowledge has opened my eyes, which were darkened by the blindness of ignorance. So today I would like to read a little bit and talk a little bit about some wonderful verses from Bhagavad-gita, the Song of God, the oldest scripture, the oldest book in the world. So teachings of Lord Krishna about Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion. So this is chapter 6. I'd just like to read a few verses and talk a little bit about that. So Krishna says to Arjuna, divine service should be practiced with confidence and in a clear consciousness of communion with me. Completely transcending the force of the sense desires generated by mental stimuli, one should use the mind as a regulator over the sensory movements. Progress should be gradual, stage by stage, and full conviction must be achieved by reasoned intelligence. At last, the mind will always graze in the pasturing grounds of the eternal homeland, the realm of supreme truth and beauty, and will never wander elsewhere. Wherever the mind wanders through impetuosity and intemperate habit, it must certainly be brought back and placed under the shelter of the divine herdsman. By absorbing their minds in full consciousness of me, my divine servants experience transcendental pleasure of the highest order. With passions calmed, they achieve freedom from blame and come to perceive the Supreme Divine Person face to face. By continuous engagement on the sacred path of service, the self-realized souls are completely cleansed of all worldly pollution, and coming to know the Supreme Truth personally, they relish the highest ambrosia of divine life. So some very powerful messages here from Sri Krishna. And he says that wherever the mind wanders due to impetuosity and intemperate habit, it must certainly be brought back and placed under the shelter of the divine herdsman. So this is our situation in this material world. We have for a long, long time, for many lifetimes, not been in the habit of remembering Krishna. In fact, we've been averse to Krishna. We have maintained an anti-devotional attitude. And this anti-devotional attitude is the greatest obstacle, the greatest trouble that we could imagine, because it means we have to face repeated birth and death. This anti-devotional attitude, this unwillingness to take shelter of the divine herdsman Sri Krishna, results in this great calamity of having to be forced to take birth again and again in the cycle of birth and death. So therefore the mind has been not our friend for a long time, because it has been forgetful of Krishna. Krishna says that elsewhere in Bhagavad-gita, that in this process of taking shelter of Krishna, getting our minds fixed on Him, is going to require continuous practice and total dedication. This is necessary. Although it is not an easy thing, certainly the results are very wonderful. As Krishna says here, that we come to taste, to relish the highest ambrosia of divine life. So there is some price to pay. That price is our lolium, our intense desire, our greed for wanting to become Krishna conscious. That's the only price. Not anything else is required. And of course, to develop that greed, we can get that only by associating with those who have greed, the sadhus, the saints. So they are all saying the same thing, that we should always remember and never forget Krishna. This will be the best thing we can do with our time. Just like Prabhupada once said that A man may say that I'm very educated. I've got many big degrees, PhD, this, that. But Prabhupada said, actually, you ask that man one question. Can you stop death? And if he says no, then all that so-called education is not education at all. Whereas in Bhagavad-gita there is the chapter Raj Vidya, meaning the king of knowledge. In other words, Bhagavad-gita is giving us the real knowledge. What is that? How to stop death altogether. Just like now with the pandemic, everyone is very anxious to get the information. What should I do to avoid this pandemic? How can I become immune? So of course vaccine is there, other drugs, etc. Much controversy about that. But even if, of course, the information is conflicting. Some say that yes, the vaccine will harm you. Others say no, it will save you. And same with these drugs, so-called, some that are going to help. Others say no, they are killers. So our first difficulty is even to get the correct information. But even then, if we do get the correct information, and we therefore are able to avoid being infected, and we don't die from COVID-19, certainly we're going to die anyway. Something, whether it be, as it says in the Vedas, adhyatmik, adhibautik, adhidaivik, there are miseries in this material world coming from other living entities. One lion attacks you in the game park, or then other difficulties come from our own bodies and minds. So one way or another, this is Mrityaloka, the planet of death. We cannot escape death by any material means. So if you avoid COVID-19, something else is sure to get you. Sure. How does it go? As sure as death and taxes. So therefore, in this human form of life, we have a rare opportunity, which is that I now have the possibility with this developed intelligence to use my time in such a way as to arrive at a point where I can stop death, where I no longer have to be subjected to the cycle of repeated birth and death. So my time is very valuable. My time is very valuable. Of course, we can spend a lot of time trying to get information about COVID-19 and how to avoid infection. But like we say, that will only save you from that particular way of dying. It won't save you from death altogether, either in this life or future lives. Whereas the Vedas are saying that atato brahma jigyasa. Now that you've got this human form of life, what should you do? You should inquire about spirit, about Brahma, about Krishna. Because in this way, if we take shelter of Krishna, as Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, that we should take shelter of him. So our gurus explain that he is our intimate friend and protector. Intimate friend and protector. Protector from all kinds of calamities, protector from the repetition of the cycle of birth and death. He is Krishna. Krishna means he who can check the repetition of birth and death. As Krishna himself says in the 18th chapter, Saradaman parichajamam ekam sharanam braja aham tam savapapebhyo moksha yishyami ma shuchaha. Giving up all other conceptions of religious laws and duties, just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. So he's saying that I can stop this death business, all kinds of death, not just COVID-19. So therefore it's intelligent to spend our time cultivating this Krishna consciousness, and automatically Krishna will give us all protection from all kinds of difficulties, and the perfection of that process is to exodus altogether from this world of birth and death, and that is the permanent solution. Exodus to the land of love, Sri Vrindavan, beyond birth and death, which is indescribably blissful, the eternal home of the Supreme Divine couple, Shri Radha Krishna, who are always enjoying there in the beautiful forests of Vrindavan, along with their pure devotees, their loving devotees, the cowherd boys, the cowherd maidens, the cows, everything madly in love with Krishna. This is our real home. Only there can we find this eternal peace and divine bliss that we are all wanting. So Krishna is giving us a very simple process that we should always remember him and never forget him. Lord Chaitanya has given us also the wonderful verse, Trinadapi Sanichena Tarodapi Sahishnanama Ninamanadena Ketaniya Sadhadi. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. So here is Krishna himself coming as a devotee, as Gauranga, saying what we should do in our present situation to make a permanent solution to all problems is to chant the holy names. Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam. And in fact it's said in the Vedas elsewhere that in this age of Kali, this very troubled time, so much contamination, the only way is the chanting of the holy names. No other spiritual process can give us the desired result. And as it says also in the Vedas, Jivera Swarupoi Nitya Krishna Das, who am I? I am an eternal servant of Krishna. That is my identity. Unfortunately, I have become confused about my identity. I've forgotten that I'm the spirit soul. I've come under illusion and become misinformed. I have the misconception that I am this body. But that is a great calamity, a great disease. In fact, that's the greatest disease, to believe that I'm this body, because from that disease comes so much trouble. Comes this cycle of birth and death, repeated. That is the greatest calamity. So what is the remedy for that disease? It's not some ordinary vaccine. It is the Maha Mantra, the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Gauranga Jai Gauranga Go Gauranga Nam. Shri Gauranga Jai Gauranga Go Gauranga Nam. So by chanting these great mantras, these holy names, the dormant love of Krishna is awoken. Just like my Guruji gave the example that material life is kind of like a man, he's in his lounge, lying down on the couch, sleeping, and then suddenly they get some soccer come on the TV, and then he wakes up and he's interested. As a material example, something like that. So the inner man actually is sleeping. Of course we get up and go to work and do so many things, but actually until such time as we wake up to Krishna consciousness, we're sleeping. The inner man is sleeping. But this mantra has the effect of waking him up to his real life of love and peace and joy in Krishna consciousness. It wakes him up. So just like Lord Chaitanya sings that beautiful song, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaurajanda Bole. Wake up, sleeping soul, wake up, sleeping soul. How long will you sleep on the lap of the witch called Maya, illusion? Take this holy name. So this mantra, this divine sound, transcendental sound of the holy names of Krishna, Gauranga, has this miraculous effect of waking up the soul to our real life. It's explained that material sound goes to the brain, but this transcendental sound, it goes to the heart. So somehow, or rather we have come to hear about this process. It is not from this world. It's not some new course that you can take from some university. No, it comes from the spiritual realm, from the spiritual sky. Just like Srinatham Das Thakur gives it that beautiful song, Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan. What he's saying, this great saint, is that there's a great treasure here available to us in this material world. As human beings, that we have access to a great treasure. Dan means treasure. And what is that treasure? It is prem, the treasure of divine love. He's saying that divine love is the greatest treasure, the greatest wealth we can imagine. And how do we receive it? He says, Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan, that how can we receive it? We can receive it in the Harinam Sankirtan, the congregational chanting of the holy names, and that this process of chanting the holy names will bring us this result of awakening our dormant love for Krishna, and that will automatically put an end to all our troubles and take us forever to that land of transcendental bliss, Sri Vrindavan, and that this process of chanting has descended. It is not from here, it has come from Goloka. Goloka, the topmost planet in the spiritual realm, the personal home of Sri Krishna. This process has been brought to us specifically in this age by Lord Chaitanya, introducing the Yuga Dharma, the religion of this age, with the congregational chanting of the holy names. So this is our business, under the guidance of Sri Guru and Gauranga, to simply hold on to the holy names, just like Krishna says in this chapter 6, that wherever the mind wanders due to impetuosity and intemperate habit. Impetuous, what does that mean, impetuous? It means it's not controlled, uncontrolled mind. An intemperate habit, it's been in this habit of forgetting Krishna for a long time. So as my Guruji says, the mind puts up a good fight, yeah, when you try to chant and replace the mundane thoughts with the thoughts of Krishna. The mind puts up a good fight. But he says also, Krishna says, that by continuous practice and total dedication, we will get the result. And as Krishna confirms here, that that we, at last, the mind will always graze in the pasturing grounds of the eternal homeland, the realm of supreme truth and beauty, and will never wander elsewhere. So it's a beautiful example that Krishna is the divine herdsman, and we are his cows, something like that, grazing in the pasturing grounds of the eternal homeland. And Krishna is saying that if we can practice continuously and become dedicated to this process of chanting, of bhakti yoga, that at last, the result will be that the mind will always be absorbed in the name, form, qualities and pastimes of Krishna, always, and that it will never wander elsewhere. So that, of course, is inconceivable to me. I'm just a neophyte on the process, but these teachings come from a great authority. The Vedas, the great sadhus, the saints, they're great authorities. And so we may try to learn from so many people in our lives, so many friends or family or teachers or professors, but so we are students, we all need to learn. But to hear from Sri Krishna, Achyuta, the infallible Lord, and his pure representatives, who therefore are also infallible, these are the perfect teachers, the wise professors, and they are not teaching something mundane. They are teaching something transcendental, which is of eternal value to the soul. And by the way, you don't have to pay any fees for the spiritual university. They're very kind, freely, as Lord Chaitanya it's described. He's freely distributing this ecstatic love of God, love of Krishna, which is ordinarily very difficult to attain. So we are fortunate in that sense to have taken birth at this particular time in this Kali Yuga, although it is a troubled time. But at the same time, we are very fortunate because Lord Chaitanya, Gauranga, is freely distributing this great wealth through the chanting of the holy name. So we should just, in a very humble mind, take shelter of the name, pray to our gurus for the strength and the humility to carry on with the process, and to understand that if there is some difficulty, that is unfortunate, but it is due to my own past misdeeds, it is my karma. As Krishna says, that we are all personally responsible for our joys and sorrows, no one else. So if we can have that humility, that if I'm having some difficulty, why is that? It is not anybody else's fault, it is not Krishna's fault, it is my own anarthas, unwanted thoughts and desires. But this process of Bhakti Yoga is purifying, taking us onward, upward, through the various stages, anartha nivritti, removing our unwanted thoughts and desires, nishta, coming to that stage of firm faith, unflinching faith, no doubts anymore. And of course beyond that are the very elevated stages of bhav, transcendental emotion, rati, and so on. And as my Guruji would like to quote the Chinese book of changes, the I Ching, that perseverance further. So this endeavor with great determination is required to be done on a steady basis, day by day, to be able to make the effort to stay on the path and make progress is something that we need to pray for, and take shelter of those who are fixed in the Absolute Truth, to hear regularly from Sri Guru, our greatest friend and Master, Holy Master, and take shelter of him. This is our greatest good fortune. Gaura, 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 Hari Bol. Wishing you all success on the path of devotion.